Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video, I'll be taking Growth of Nationalism. As I know you don't have much time to read the whole textbook, these are the main points which are important, and if you listen and if you just focus on this, your most portion will be covered. So without wasting more time, we will quickly start. First, the introduction. One of the most distinguishing features of the second half of the 19th century was the birth of national awakening in India. It originated from the concepts of nationalism and right of self-determination initiated by the French Revolution, the socio-religious reform movements in India, and as a reaction of the Indians to the British colonial policies. The political awareness generated by these trends gave birth to various political associations. This trend culminated in the establishment of the Indian National Congress in 1885, which marked the formal beginning of the organized national movement in India. So, chapter at a glance. Nationalism refers to the feeling of oneness and common consciousness that emerges when people living in a common territory share the same historical, political, and cultural background, have the same language, cultural values, and consider themselves as one nation. There were many factors which contributed to the growth of nationalism in India. This included the following. Though India had a long history going back to many centuries, it never was a one nation and comprised many kingdoms. The modern nationalism emerged during the British rule, mainly as a reaction to the British rule and the clash of interests of the Indian people with those of the British. Indians resisted the British rule from its very beginning, but this resistance was highly localized and scattered. The culmination of traditional opposition to British rule came with the First War of Independence. Although it failed to achieve its objectives, it inspired the Indians to resist the foreign power and make a determined struggle for the country's freedom. Thus, the very nature of the foreign rule resulted in nationalistic sentiments. The second half of the 19th century witnessed the emergence of national political consciousness and strong feelings of nationalism. Coming to the factors promoting growth of nationalism. The first factor was economic exploitation. There were many factors that aroused opposition to British rule, but economic exploitation was the most important among them. More and more Indians realized that the general aim of the British policies in India was to promote their own interests at the cost of welfare of the Indians. The economic discontent of different sections of society was follows. First, the peasants. They were the main victims of British colonial policies. Land revenue and other taxes led the peasants into the clutches of landlords and moneylenders. Talking about the artisans and the craftsmen, the British economic policies were against the interests of Indian trade and industry. India became a source of raw materials for the industries of Britain and a market for its finished products. This policy crippled the artisans and the craftsmen. The working class. The working class were exploited by the factory owners. Although they formed a small section of the population, they represented a new social outlook. Their political thinking became far more significant than their numerical strength. Talking about the educated Indians, the only employment available to the educated Indians was government service, in which competition was high and chances of promotions were bleak. They found that British policies were keeping India economically backward. The second factor was repressive colonial policies. The British had conquered India to promote their own interests and followed repressive policies to make India subservient to the needs of Britain. These policies became the major barrier to India's economic, social, cultural, intellectual, and political development. Repressive policies of Lord Lytton acted as a catalyst for the growth of nationalist movement in India. Lord Lytton organized a Grand Delhi Darbar in 1877 to proclaim Queen Victoria as the Empress of India. Lakhs of rupees were spent on the event, but nothing was done for Indians who were in the grip of a famine. Lord Lytton introduced the Vernacular Press Act 1878 and Indian Arms Act 1879. The Vernacular Press Act forbade vernacular papers to publish any material that might excite feelings of dissatisfaction against the British government. This act was not applicable to English newspapers. The Indian Arms Act of 1879 made it a criminal offence for Indians to carry arms without license. This act was not applicable to the British. The maximum age limit for the Indian Civil Service examination was reduced from 21 to 19 years, thus making it difficult for the Indians to compete for it. The import duties on British textiles were removed. Sir C.P. Albert introduced a bill popularly known as the Albert Bill in 1883. The bill sought to abolish judicial disqualification based on race distinctions. This was resented by the British. Coming to the third factor promoting the growth of nationalism was socio-religious reform movements. The socio-religious reform movements of the 19th century were great pioneers of Indian nationalism. The impact of Western education made the educated Indians realize the need to reform their religion and society. In the social sphere, these movements worked for the abolition of caste system, child marriage, dowry system, parda system, sati, and female infanticide. They launched a crusade against social and legal inequalities. In the religious sphere, these reform movements combated religious superstitions, attacked idolatry, polytheism, and hereditary priesthood. These movements fought for individual liberty and social equality. Prominent among these were Brahmo Samaj, founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Arya Samaj, founded by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Ramakrishna Mission, founded by Swami Vivekananda, and Satyashodhak Samaj, founded by Jyotiba Phule. Now talking about the great personality, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. He was one of the greatest social and religious reformers of the 19th century. He wanted to do away with the religious and social evils which were prevalent in Bengal. He founded the Brahmo Samaj. It condemned idol worship and laid emphasis on prayer, meditation, charity, morality, and strengthening the bonds of unity between men of all religions and creeds. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was against the rigidity of the caste system. He started a campaign for the abolition of sati and parda system, condemned polygamy, discouraged child marriages, and advocated the right of widows to remarry. It was because of his efforts a law was passed in making the practice of sati illegal and punishable by law. He also protested against restrictions on the freedom of press. Now talking about the second greatest personality, Jyotiba Phule. He was an urban educated member of low caste. His education and personal experiences had made him critical of Hindu religion and customs. He established a school for untouchables and started a private orphanage for the widows. He wanted to liberate the depressed classes and make them aware of their rights by educating them. He founded the Satyashodhak Samaj in 1873 with the aim of securing social justice for the weaker sections of the society. He pioneered the widow remarriage movement in Maharashtra and worked for the education of women. The socio-religious reform movements contributed to the onset of Indian nationalism in the following ways. Swami Dayanand and Swami Vivekananda proclaimed the superiority of Indian culture and civilization. The reformers condemned untouchability and the caste system. The ideas of brotherhood and equality attracted the so-called lower castes. The reformers taught people not to ignore the importance of women who could participate in the national movement. They protested against the British domination of India. The reform movements drew their inspiration from India's cultural heritage and promoted a feeling of pan-Indianism and a spirit of nationalism. The reform movements created a consciousness of a new society devoid of privileges based on caste, creed, or religion. Now, coming to the fourth factor promoting growth of nationalism, it was role of the press. Large number of newspapers were started in the later half of the 19th century, like the Amrit Bazar Patrika, the Bengali, the Tribune, the Pioneer, the Times of India, the Hindu, and the Statesman in English. These newspapers played a significant role in developing a strong nationalist sentiment among the Indians. It was through the press that the message of patriotism and modern liberal ideas of liberty, freedom, equality, home rule, and independence spread among the people. The press carried on daily criticism of the unjust policies of the British government in India and exposed the true nature of British rule in India. It made possible the exchange of views among different social groups from different parts of the country and organizing political movements. It made Indians aware of what was happening in the world. This awareness helped them to understand the political and social development of the outside world and shape their own policies and programs. Now, coming to the second most important topic of this chapter, precursors of the Indian National Congress. Raja Ram Mohan Roy is the pioneer of political movement in India. He demanded liberty of the press, appointment of Indians in civil courts and other high posts, codification of laws, etc. The first political association to be started in India was the Landholders' Society in Calcutta in 1838. Other associations like Bengal British India Society, British Indian Association, East India Association, London Indian Society, and Indian Association were also started. This action served as a base for the formation of the Congress, an all-India political organization. The most prominent among these associations were the following. First, the Indian Association, 1876. It was headed by Surendranath Banerjee. The association had lawyers, professionals, and educated middle class as its members. The objectives of the Indian Association included The objectives of the Indian Association included creation of a strong body of public opinion, integration of Indian people, promotion of friendly relations between Hindus and Muslims, and fourth, mass participation in public movements. It launched agitations against oppressive acts such as the License Act, the Arms Act, and the Vernacular Press Act. The second association is East India Association of 1866. The East India Association was founded in London in 1866 by Dadabhai Naoroji. It provided information on all Indian subjects to British citizens and members of parliament. It voiced the grievances of Indians and suggested remedial measures. He wanted to place the true state of affairs in India before the people of England so that the problems of the Indians may be resolved. The association had its branches in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. Coming to the third association, which was Indian National Conference of 1883. In 1883, Surendranath Banerjee convened the All India National Conference at Kolkata. It was a provincial organization. It offered a model to the Indian National Congress, which was formed 2 years later. The purpose was to work for the welfare of Indians, so the National Conference merged with the Indian National Congress in December 1886. Coming to the formation of the Indian National Congress. Leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji, and Justice Ranade were moving towards the formation of All India political body. A.O. Hume, a retired British member of the Indian Civil Service, wanted to set up an organization that would draw the government's attention to the administrative drawbacks and suggest means to rectify them. In 1884, Hume, in consultation with the Indian leaders, laid the foundation of Indian National Union. The meeting of the Indian National Congress was held at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College, Bombay, from December 28 to 31, 1885, under the presidency of Vomesh Chandra Banerjee. It was attended by 72 delegates. The Viceroy, Lord Dufferin, favoured the formation of the Congress because he wanted it to act as a safety valve for popular discontent, thereby safeguarding the British interest in India. The Congress stood for the hopes and aspirations of the people of India, who accepted its leadership in launching the freedom movement. So, it's just for information, but I'll tell you the aims of the Indian National Congress. The aims of the Indian National Congress were, first, to promote friendly relations between nationalist political workers from different parts of the country. Second was to develop and consolidate the feelings of national unity irrespective of caste, religion, or province. The third was to formulate popular demands and present them before the government. And fourth was to train and organize the public opinion in the country. Coming to the sessions of the Congress. The first session of the Congress was attended by 72 delegates from all parts of India, including such eminent persons as Dadabhai Naoroji, Vomesh Chandra Banerjee, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tyabji. The second session of 1886 was held at Kolkata under the presidency of Dadabhai Naoroji. Some of the delegates were received by Lord Dufferin as distinguished visitors to the capital. So the important resolutions at sessions of the Congress. In the 23rd session, the Surat session of the Congress held in 1907, there was split between the two wings. In the 26th session of the Congress, held in Kolkata in 1911, the national anthem Jana Gana Mana was sung for the first time. In the 31st session of the Lucknow, held in 1916, joint session with the Muslim League and signing of Lucknow Pact took place. In 39th session of the Congress in Belgaum in the year 1924, Mahatma Gandhi presided over the session. The 44th Congress session of Lahore in 1929, it was declared Purna Swaraj and to launch civil disobedience movement. The 51st session held in Haripura in 1938, Subhash Chandra Bose was elected as the president. For the 23rd Surat session held in 1907, the president was Raj Bihari Ghosh. For the 31st session of the Congress held in 1916, it was Ambika Charan Majumdar. The Surat session of 1907 was disturbed on account of serious differences between the early nationalists and the assertive nationalists and was again called at Chennai as a continuation of the same session. Is your doubt clear, Charan? I hope so. Now coming to the board exam questions. So as you know, this year you have multiple choice questions, but it's worth reading the previous year's question. So the first question, mention any two social reforms suggested to the British by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So the answer is Raja Ram Mohan Roy suggested to the Governor General William Bentinck to pass a law in 1821 making the practice of sati illegal and punishable by law. The Widow Remarriage Act in 1856, legalizing widow remarriage too, was suggested by him. Question number 2. State two factors responsible for the growth of nationalism in India. First was economic exploitation. It was the most important factor for growth of nationalism, as Indians realized that the aim of British was to promote their own interest at the cost of welfare of Indians. The second factor was repressive colonial policies, like passing the Vernacular Press Act, Arms Act, etc., aroused discontentment against the British, leading to growth of nationalism. Name two forerunners of the Indian National Congress. The East India Association, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, Bombay Association, British Indian Association. Yes, these are also correct, Arushi. Okay, the next question. With reference to the nationalism, explain how did the British react when the Indian National Congress was founded? Why did their attitude change later? When the Indian National Congress was founded, the attitude of the British government in the beginning was very friendly and sympathetic. Lord Dufferin, the Viceroy, also favored the foundation of the Congress because he felt that this All India Party, that is the Indian National Congress, would act as a safety valve for release of popular discontentment to safeguard the British interests in India. The sympathetic attitude of the British government changed later when the Congress began to demand more rights for the people and also when they saw the growth of nationalism. The British began to criticize the Congress leaders and branded them as disloyal. Next question. Mention two objectives of the Congress as enumerated by Chandra Banerjee. The main aims and objectives of the Congress, as enumerated by its president, Chandra Banerjee, are promotion of close relations between nationalistic workers from different parts of the country. Second, training and organization of public opinion in the country. Third, formulation of popular demands and their presentation before the government. And fourth, development and consolidation of the feeling of national unity, irrespective of caste, religion, or province. Next question. Mention the popular watchwords during the French Revolutions which influenced us Indians due to the introduction of Western education in India. Yes, you are correct, Smart Girl. You are correct, Arushi. The popular watchwords during the French Revolution which influenced us, the Indians, due to the introduction of Western education in India were liberty, fraternity, and equality. The next question, with reference to the rise of national consciousness in India, explain the following. Any three contributions of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. First, he wanted to do away with the religious and social evils which were prevalent in Bengal. You're correct, Neeta. Second was he founded the Brahmo Samaj. It condemned idol worship and laid emphasis on prayer, meditation, charity, morality, and strengthening the bonds of unity between men of all religions and creeds. And the third was Raja Ram Mohan Roy was against the rigidity of the caste system. He started a campaign for the abolition of sati and parda system. He condemned polygamy, discouraged child marriages, and advocated the right of widows to remarry. It was because of his efforts a law was passed in making the practice of sati illegal and punishable by law. He also protested against restrictions on the freedom of press. So I hope you all enjoyed the session. All your